All the coaches that are here can rest easy. I don't referee anymore. I'm putting on my glasses. First, I want to congratulate the rest of the class 2012. I'm honored to be in their company. And I really want to give a shout out to Fran Judkins from the Hall of Fame and the rest of the staff. She's a superstar. Now, I knew Hubie when he was a player at Niagara. I was in high school and I watched him dive on loose balls, take charges, get in fights. He was a competitor and an outstanding player. And he had a hand in my officiating career. When I went to Duke to start my doctorate, Hubie was the assistant coach to Bucky Waters. And I called him when I got there looking for some information about official assigners to do some high school games and so forth. And he did that. And then he also arranged for me to referee a scrimmage preseason with a real game scrimmage with Jacksonville, with Artis Gilmore and Pembroke Burroughs and Rex Morgan. And I had done a few high school varsity games. And when I showed up on that court and looked at that, I said, I'm not so sure I'm ready for this. But as time went by in that game, I felt comfortable and so forth. And Hubie also made it possible for the supervisor of officials to come to that game and observe the game. And when the game was over, the ACC supervisor gave me a schedule. And that jump-started my career, working toward the journey at the end of working all those big games that were so much fun. And thank you, Hubie. On the journey through life, everyone knows that people have to give you some positive attitude boosts, and they have to do things for you that even at the time you don't really respect. My mother and father, Shorty and Lucille Nichols from Niagara Falls, New York, grew my brother and I up with a couple of main principles to follow through life. Be fair to everybody, treat everybody equally, and do the right thing. I followed that advice, trying to get to the point that they said would lead to integrity and character for a person. Now, what better advice and character trait to instill in a person than those for a basketball referee? To be fair to everybody and to do the right thing. So I have to thank my father for that. That philosophy has helped me through life, and they would be so proud if they were here today. Now, my father was a World War II veteran. Thank you. My father was a World War II veteran, and he worked in a carbon plant for 40 years. But he accumulated a whole lot of wisdom, and occasionally he would impart that to me. And on one occasion, when I was offered the job as first national coordinator of NCAA men's basketball, I asked for some time to think about it, and as soon as I could, I called my father. And I said, Pa, they want me to quit refereeing, be the national coordinator, and straighten out college officiating. They want me to get the East and the West and the North and the South all on the same page and straighten out that mess. He said, are they going to pay you for that? And I said, yeah. He said, tell me what they're going to want you to do again. And I told him, he says, they want you to straighten out that mess. He said, son, it's a no-brainer. You take that job. You'll have a job for life because you'll never straighten it out. I have to credit my deceased brother, Bob, for getting me started in refereeing. He talked me into taking the test up in Buffalo to be a high school official, and we started refereeing in junior high and JV and some varsity games. Then eventually, locally, we got assigned some Niagara freshman games. And that year that we did that, Calvin Murphy was a freshman. So one night, my brother and I, Bob Nichols and Hank Nichols, are on the court at Niagara refereeing the Syracuse-Niagara freshman game. And don't we foul Calvin out with like 4 minutes to go. And now there's a timeout and a lull, and there's a woman there by Mrs. Welfare, name of Mrs. Welfare, who went to every Niagara game, sat under the basket, and had a gravel-gurdy voice. And at this quiet moment, she's all mad about Calvin getting fouled out. She stood up and screamed, and everybody in the auditorium heard her, "2 nickels aren't worth a dime." It's hard to relate all the people and tell you everybody that has affected my life, but I'll try to tell about a few. Dave Gavitt was the chair of the committee that hired me as the national coordinator and oversaw my first years in that job, and I am forever indebted to him, and God bless him. Tom Jernstedt, who's here tonight, vice president of the championships, ran the tournament at NCAA, had a lot of titles. I'm not sure I got any of them right, but he oversaw my part of the program, and he mentored me, and he kept me out of a lot of trouble, and I'll never forget you for that, Tom. Thank you. Ed Stites, a Hall of Famer himself, a legend, a giant in the rules business. I worked with him when I first took the coordinator's job, and he tutored me and mentored me until I became his successor as the rules editor, along with my job as coordinator. And he taught me so much, but the thing he instilled in me about the rules is that it doesn't matter how you write the rule or what the words say, you have to teach it by the spirit and intent of the rule. And I've never forgotten that, and I use that as a credo in any instruction I ever did. Also like to thank Marcy Weston for being here tonight. She was my counterpart in the women's side, coordinator and secretary rules editor, and she taught me how to write rules, and she kept me from going off the deep end on interpretations that I didn't take into account, some of the women's part rules and so forth, and Marcy straightened me out well and became a good friend. Thank you, Marcy, for being here. My successor as Secretary Rules Editor was Ed Billick, who's here tonight, and he kept the tradition going that Ed Stites got from John Bunn, that I got from Ed Stites, and Ed Billick, who worked with Ed Stites. He knew the spirit and intent of the rule was the main thing, and he worked with me hand in glove as national coordinator, and we have become good friends, and thank you, Ed, for being here tonight, and thank for your support. I went to Villanova University on a baseball scholarship, and I can't speak enough about my school or the Augustinian fathers that run the school. Father John Stack, who's a vice president at Villanova and Augustinian, is here tonight representing the Augustinians, and I thank him for being here. The rest of the Villanova contingent has just overwhelmed me with Bob Stites and Dean Kennefitt and Coach Jay Wright, and I guess I just underestimated how happy Villanova was to have this honor bestowed on me. And now I thought about the whole thing about when you get inducted to something like this, what are your emotions and how do you feel? Well, I'll tell you, the only one that I can explain that capsules it is that I saw a newsletter from Villanova that said, Hank Nichols to be the second Villanovan in the Basketball Hall of Fame. And I read the article, and the other one was Paul Arizin. Now I looked at that thing and I said, Hank Nichols, the referee, Paul Arizin, one of the best players in the world ever, that's knee buckling. So my knees buckling is really the emotion I can relate to you. I have friends here who are more like brothers to me, Mike Gormley and George McGrath, Kathy Gormley, who's more like a sister to me, Dan Regan, who's also become more a brother than friend, my sister-in-law, Terry, my brother's wife, and a bunch of other friends here. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but thank you for supporting me and being here tonight. The one person most responsible for my unbelievable journey to this night is my wife of 32 years who left us a dozen or so years ago, much too soon, Letitia Ann Marino Nichols. It was her urging that put us at Duke to go for my doctorate. It was her urging that I took a job on the faculty at Villanova. She manned the home front, took care of the 4 children. Despite a professional educator herself, she managed all this on those winter nights I was gone. She was the key to the family, keeping them on the right track. There's a song that conveys the words that say better than I what Letty meant to me. And those words are, she raised me up to more than I could ever be. Three of Letty's sisters and their husbands are here tonight. Edie, Janet, Rita, thank you for being here. They remain constant reminders to me that family is forever. Thank you very much. Jeff, Rachel, Emily, and Sarah, my 4 children. I'm so proud of them. They're here tonight, and to witness their ascendancy as terrific persons with outstanding character make me so proud of them. Their unconditional love and support are my life's blood. Thank you for being who you are. You are the lights of my life, and I love you more than you can imagine. My daughter-in-law, Sandy, my son-in-law, Chris, and my grandchildren, Simon, Joshua, and Lucas, complete a family circle that was made in heaven. Finally, I want to thank Deirdre Meckie, who entered my life and my heart a few years ago. I love her dearly, and she's forever enshrined in my personal Hall of Fame as she continues to raise me up. Now, I saw all the coaches here tonight and the coaches that are on that thing up there and everything else. Now, my relationship with coaches was all different than Katrina or Nelson or anybody. I had a different relationship with coaches. Sometimes it was good and sometimes it was bad. Sometimes it was funny, sometimes it was sad. But I want to relate a couple of stories before I leave you tonight, one of which has to do with Jim Valvano. People have used this story, but it happened to me. He got antsy one night, the first part of the game. I said, Jim, you got to sit down. Went up on the court, he kept antsy. Jim, you got to keep quiet. Up and down the court, and he wouldn't keep quiet. I said, Jim, I might have to call a technical. Sit down. He called a timeout, said, Hank, can you call a technical for what I'm thinking? I said, no. He says, well, I think you stink. True story. Coaches think differently. Lefty Driesell had a great team. Len Elmore, Tom McMillan, John Lucas. They were one of the best teams in the country. They lost a game on a Saturday night at home to Wake Forest. Shouldn't have lost the game. They played lousy. So anyhow, I'm home after the game was Saturday night. Monday morning, I get a call from Norval Nave, the supervisor of officials. He says, Hank, you got to come in early tomorrow when you come down for your game at Duke. He said, Lefty sent 10 plays in and said you missed them all and cost him the game Saturday night. 10 plays? Whoa, I better see that film. So I go down there and we're watching the film and Norval's showing them, and 10 plays and 9 of them were called right. One was a little iffy, but not anything he could really grab. So I said, what the heck is he talking about? He said, I don't know, I'll call him up. So I'm sitting there, and he calls Lefty. He says, Lefty, I got Hank down here, and we looked at those plays, and he got them all right on that film. And then he starts going, graphic. Okay, I'll tell him, Lefty. He hangs up. I said, what did he say? He said, he didn't care what I did on that film. I missed him Saturday night. The players could get you humble, too. At one time, I went to the captains in a game, and I think Buzz Peterson might have been the captain that I talked to on the one team, and I forget who the other captain was, but I used to try to do this cute little thing with them before the game and say, gentlemen, tonight I want you to be aware of the fact that there's a book in the library, a statistical book that says referees are 96% correct on their calls. Your job tonight is to stay off our back on the other 4%. So they're looking at me, and Buzz Peterson says, that book's in the library? 96%? And I said, yeah. He said, it must be under fiction. Lastly, I'd like to get serious for a moment and just say that being honored as a referee in the Hall of Fame and getting up alongside all these greats that we've read about and known about for years is an honor I can't express my joy for. But I'm accepting it for all referees. The striped shirt being inducted in the Hall of Fame is really big time. The coaches, the NABC group, they say they're the guardians of the game, and rightly so. But the referees are the integrity of the game. And I represent that integrity for all referees, and I accept this on their behalf. Thank you very much.